My name is Natalia, and I am 34 years old. You refuse to help us? Mom texted after my sister asked me to fund her life. I said, "You wish." I left the country. Now they are facing eviction. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. I was sitting in my cubicle halfway through a turkey sandwich when my phone buzzed with Kayla's message. "Hey, sis, big news. I'm finally doing it. I'm quitting the salon tomorrow. Derek and I talked about it, and we decided I need time to find myself. Figure out what I really want to do with my life. You'll take care of us while I figure things out, right? I know you've got that great job and no kids or anything, so it just makes sense. We can move in next weekend." Each time, my blood pressure rose slightly. My sister Kayla was 31 years old, 2 years younger than me. She had been working as a receptionist at a hair salon for 7 years, earning decent money from tips. Derek, her partner, was 34 and worked intermittently as a freelance graphic designer, which largely involved playing video games and occasionally updating someone's logo. They'd been together for 5 years, living in a tiny apartment that his parents had partially funded. I set down my sandwich. My hands were shaking. The audacity was nearly astounding. Almost. I typed back. "That's not on me." 3 little dots appeared, then disappeared and reappeared. "What do you mean by we are family? This is what the family does." I did not respond. Instead, I went straight to my manager's office and inquired whether the Singapore position was still open, the one they've been attempting to fill for 4 months, the one that included a significant salary rise, a full relocation package, and a 4-year contract beginning Monday. "You're interested?" Elaine asked, surprised. "You said you couldn't possibly move internationally." "I changed my mind. I want it. I'll sign today." 7 hours later, I received a contract via email. I signed it electronically at 6:37 p.m. while sitting in my car in the parking lot. My hands remained steady this time. The communication from Mom arrived around 6:45 p.m. "Your sister just called me sobbing. She said you refuse to help her when she needs you most. How could you be so selfish? She's family. We take care of family. Call me immediately." I listened to the voicemail. The shame sought to seep in as it did throughout my life. However, something was different now. Something eventually snapped. I called Mom. "Natalia, thank God. Listen, Kayla is really struggling right now." "Mom, I'm moving to Singapore on Monday. I accepted a job transfer. I won't be able to help Kayla because I'll be living on the other side of the world." There was silence. Complete silence. "You are what? Moving to Singapore for at least 4 years, maybe longer? You can't be serious. You can't just leave your family when we need you." "Actually, I can. I already signed the contract." "This is because of Kayla's text, isn't it? You're being petty and spiteful." Something in me cracked open. Years of something I'd been holding back. "You want to know what's petty, Mom? Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you about the last 16 years of my life." "Natalia, no, you're going to listen." When my dad passed away, I was 18. Heart attack, abrupt and brutal. He was the dad that saw me, attended my track meetings, and assisted me with my calculus homework. Mom had always been closer to her baby girl, Kayla, who required more attention, support, and everything. I was getting ready for school that morning when it happened. Dad had been having coffee at the kitchen table and reading the newspaper like he did every morning. He grinned at me and asked if I was prepared for my history presentation. I had said yes. He told me how pleased he was of me. 25 minutes later, Mom screamed from their bedroom. The funeral was crowded with guests. Dad had a good reputation at his engineering firm and was engaged in our community. Everyone told anecdotes about his kindness, humor, and generosity. I stood there in a black outfit borrowed from my friend Chloe, shaking hands and accepting condolences from others despite feeling absolutely numb. Kayla couldn't even complete the service. She had a panic attack halfway through, so Mom had to pull her out. I sat alone in that pew, listening to the preacher speak about a man I would never see again. And something inside me had become incredibly silent and still. After Dad died, everything changed. I was beginning my senior year. Kayla was 16 years old when she felt utterly apart. I realized that grieving is different for everyone. But whereas Kayla received therapy, extended absences from school, and Mom's continuous supervision, I received expectations. "You're so strong, Natalia. You're handling this so well. I need you to be strong for your sister." I didn't get to fall apart. I needed to maintain my marks because I had already applied for scholarships. I had to enroll in college since we couldn't afford it otherwise. I had to work 18 hours a week at the grocery store to help pay costs while Kayla was able to focus on her recovery. I received a full ride at UCLA. Mom cried, but these weren't happy tears. It's so far away. How can you leave us right now? Kayla still needs you. I need you. Kayla had thrown a fuss after I showed her my admission letter, actually threw things across the room. She'd screamed that I was abandoning her, that I didn't care about the family, and that I was selfish for applying somewhere so far away. You could go to community college here, Mom remarked, her voice tightening. Save money, be close to home where you're needed. However, the scholarship covered everything: accommodation, board, tuition, and books. It was an incredible opportunity, and a part of me knew that if I didn't take it, I'd never get out of the role they'd assigned me. I went anyhow. It was the first selfish act I'd ever committed, and the guilt nearly killed me. Throughout my first month at UCLA, I called home every day. Kayla refused to speak to me. Mom would get on the phone and sigh loudly, telling me how Kayla had wept all through supper, shut herself in her room for hours, and wasn't eating properly. She misses you so much, Mom would say. The connotation was plain. This is your fault. I offered to come home on weekends. Mom said it would just make it tougher for me to leave again. I offered to video chat with Kayla. She had declined. I had sent care packages, long notes, and hilarious cards. They went unanswered. By October, I was suffering panic attacks in my dorm room, thinking that I had made a huge mistake. My roommate, Jenna, from Portland, finally sat me down. Your family is manipulating you, she had stated simply. Can't you see that they want you to feel so guilty that you'll drop out and come home? I was arguing against her. Of course, they were not trying to manipulate me. They were just grieving and struggling. But Jenna's comments had sown a seed. During college, I worked 2 jobs and maintained a 3.9 GPA. I called home 3 times each week. I returned for every holiday, paying for flights that I couldn't afford. Kayla attended 2 semesters of community college before dropping out to pursue her passion. Mom was supportive of this decision. When I graduated and obtained my first professional job, I began sending money home, not because anybody asked, but because Mom casually said, "The large energy bill this month, Kayla required new tires, or the home needed to be repaired." Every time I would wire money. Every time I'd eat ramen for dinner to make up the difference in my budget. My beginning pay was $58,000 per year, which seemed like a lot after being a broke college student. But after taxes, rent, student loans for the small amount not covered by scholarships, and a steady trickle of money back home, I was barely getting by. I recall one particularly horrible month when I contributed $700 to cover Kayla's auto insurance after she had let it lapse. That same week, my own automobile broke down. I required $450 in repairs. I did not have it. I had to borrow money from Jenna, who was now working in Seattle but remained my best friend. "This is insane," she informed me on the phone. "You're going into debt to fund your sister's irresponsibility." "It's just temporary," I'd said, "until she gets back on her feet." "Natalia, she's never going to get back on her feet if you keep catching her every time she falls." I paid Jenna back over 5 months, $60 per month. Kayla moved away at the age of 24 to live with Zach, her first serious boyfriend. That lasted 9 months until he kicked her out for cheating on him. She returned home. Mom contacted me, crying about Kayla's heartbreak and her need for assistance. The call had arrived at 1:50 a.m. I had fallen asleep, weary following a 13-hour workday. Mom was practically frantic. "She won't stop crying. She won't eat. Natalia, I'm really worried about her. Can you come home this weekend? She needs to see you. She needs to know that her family is here for her." I'd taken a personal day on Friday, driven 5 hours home, and spent the weekend listening to Kayla cry about Zach, how he never respected her, and how all guys were trash. She scarcely acknowledged my presence, save to accept my condolences. Sunday night, as I was leaving, she requested if I could leave her some money for petrol and food. I had given her $140. It was every dollar in my wallet, money I'd set aside for groceries that week. I sent $400 to cover Kayla's credit card debt from our relationship. Then came Derek. Initially, he appeared strange. He had a job in his own apartment. Kayla moved in with him 4 months later. Mom was thrilled. "See, she's finally getting her life together. I'm so relieved. You must be too." I said it honestly. I hoped Kayla had discovered happiness. However, with time, the calls resumed. Could I help Kayla with her car payment only once? Could I lend them money for rent? Can I cover their pet deposit if they get a dog? Each request was met with assurances that it was the last time and that they were getting back on schedule. I answered yes every time. Last Christmas, I spent $900 on gifts for Kayla, Derek, and my mother. I'd flown home for 4 days and spent an additional $720 on plane tickets. Kayla gave me an $18 candle from Target. Mom gave me a framed photo of Kayla and me from our childhood, which I assumed had been in the attic for years. The candle still had a price sticker on the bottom. I discovered it later as I unpacked, tucked away in my suitcase. Holiday cheer, scented clearance rack. I'd been sitting on my bed in my empty apartment holding that foolish candle when something inside me shattered. Not broken, just cracked like a windshield before shattering fully. Kayla mentioned wanting a professional cosmetics kit, so I purchased her one for $380. I had gotten Derek a high-end gaming headset for $220. Mom got a spa day package for $280. I'd spent hours selecting thoughtful gifts to demonstrate my attention to detail. I cared. I felt grateful to be a part of the family. A discount candle. Kayla said on Christmas Eve that she was considering returning to school to pursue massage therapy. The program would cost $900,000. She stared at me hopefully. The entire family had gathered in the living room. Mom, Kayla, Derek, Aunt Megan, Uncle Daniel, and a few cousins. Kayla had announced it as if it were fantastic news, but her gaze was fixed on me the entire time. "That's great," I said. "How are you going to pay for it?" The room had become quiet. Kayla's smile had faded. "Well, I was hoping... you've always been so good about helping me invest in my future." Invest? As if the money I'd given her over the years was some kind of mutual fund that paid dividends. I said, "I'll think about it," and then changed the subject. Mom later pulled me aside. "You're in a better position to help. You don't have children. You make a solid living, and Kayla is making a concerted effort to change her life." I agreed to explore it. I never did. Kayla never brought it up again, which showed me how serious she was. But here's what I found out months later from a cousin who felt awful for keeping quiet. Kayla had already been admitted to the program. She had been telling everyone for weeks that I was paying for it. She boasted about her kind older sister who had funded her job transition. When the tuition deadline passed and I hadn't given money, she told everyone I'd backed out at the last minute, that I'd committed to contribute but then changed my mind, that I'd disappointed her. I had been cast as the villain in a story I had no idea I was involved in. 5 months ago, Kayla texted me and asked if I could co-sign a loan for a new car. Hers was old, but still functional. She preferred something nicer. I had said no for the first time in my life. Kayla did not speak with me for 3 weeks. When she eventually did, she pretended nothing had happened. Her texts, however, had a frigid edge. All of this came gushing out to Mom over the phone. 16 years of being the responsible one, the strong one, the one who made sacrifices to ensure everyone else's comfort. "I have given everything to this family," I explained, my voice oddly calm. "I put myself through college. I worked myself to exhaustion. I sent money I didn't have. I put my own life on hold over and over again. And you know what I realized today, Mom? Nobody has ever asked me what I need. Nobody has ever considered what I want. Not once in 16 years." "That's not fair, Natalia. We've always appreciated." "Have you? Because appreciation does not require more money. Appreciation would have asked me how I was doing when Dad died, rather than telling me to be strong for Kayla. And it would have celebrated my accomplishments rather than making me feel guilty for having them." Mom's voice became sharper. "Your father would be so disappointed in you right now." "No, Mom. Dad would be proud that I'm finally putting myself first. He's the one who taught me I was worth something. You're the one who taught me I was only valuable for what I could give everyone else." I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time from adrenaline, not rage. The following 4 days were chaotic. Kayla phoned me 19 times. I didn't respond. She left voicemails ranging from hurt, angry, and desperate. "How can you do this to me? I'm your sister. You're being selfish. Hi, I hope you know that. Please live. Please just talk to me. I'm scared. I don't know what to do." I listened to each voicemail once and then erased them. Some part of me wanted to hear them to grasp what I was leaving behind. In her last message, her voice was small and cracked, like she were terrified. The old me would have crumbled, called back, apologized, and worked out a deal. The new me pressed delete and started packing. Mom texted me frequently, long lines about family commitments, how I was ignoring them, and how she had raised me better than this. She tried guilt, wrath, and then bargaining. What if Kayla promises to get another job right away? What if she only stays with you for a few months? What if we all sit down and talk about this? In addition to Mom's messages, there were texts from Kayla's pals, individuals I hardly knew. Kayla appears to have gathered her troops, informing them that her callous sister was abandoning her in her time of need. How can you do this to Kayla? She's always talked about how close you two are. Family is supposed to be there for each other. This is really messed up. I hope you can live with yourself. I disconnected all the phones I didn't recognize. Then I blocked some of them. My own pals had a different story. Molly, whom I'd known since college, sent me a single SMS. Finally, I'm so proud of you. Let me know if you need help packing. Jenna called from Seattle. Oh my God, you actually did it. You actually selected yourself. Natalia, I'm really emotional right now. This is the best thing you've ever done. My coworker Felicia, whom I'd had a few drinks with, responded. Heard about Singapore. That's incredible. Let me know if you need any advice. My brother lived there for 4 years. The contrast was startling. People that genuinely cared for me were enthusiastic and supportive. People who regarded me as a resource became enraged and attacked. Friday afternoon, I received a Facebook message from Zach, Kayla's ex-boyfriend from years ago. Hey, I heard about what's going on and just wanted to say good for you. Kayla told everyone I was the bad guy when we broke up, but the truth is she was using me the entire time. She cheated on me, maxed out a credit card I mistakenly added her to, and then played the victim when I kicked her out. I'm sure she's doing the same thing to you now. You're wise to get out. Good luck in Singapore. I stared at that remark for a long time. Kayla had always portrayed herself as the victim in that relationship, the innocent girlfriend duped by her harsh lover. I trusted her because she was my sister. Family believes in family. How much of my beliefs about my family were true? How many stories had I believed without inquiry because it was simpler than confronting reality? I replied once. I'm moving to Singapore on Monday. This is my final decision. I need space from both of you. I then silenced their phone numbers. Molly, my best friend, came over on Saturday to help me pack. She had known about my family's circumstances for years and had become increasingly vocal about how they treated me. I'm so proud of you, she added, wrapping my plates in newspaper. Do you know how many times I've watched them bleed you dry? How many times I've bitten my tongue while you made excuses for them? Why didn't you say something? Would you have listened? She had the proper idea. I would not have. I'd fallen too deeply into the cycle, too conditioned to feel that being a good daughter and sister required sacrificing everything. Sunday morning, I received an email from Mom. The subject line said, "Please read, important." The email was long. She certainly invested time in it. It mentioned how she had been pondering on our chat, how she may have put too much pressure on me over the years, and how she wanted to understand my point of view. It was almost enough to make me pause. But then I reached the final paragraph. That said, I really think you're making a huge mistake with this Singapore job. It's so far away. And what if something happens to Kayla or me? What if we need you? I think you should reconsider. There will be other job opportunities, but you only have one family. Please think about what's really important here. Love, Mom. I clicked the delete button. Monday morning has arrived. My apartment was empty, except for the few suitcases I was bringing with me. Everything else was stored. I would reside in corporate housing in Singapore until I secured my own place. As I was loading my car for the trip to the airport, my phone called with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I responded. Lauren, it's Derek. I nearly hung up. What do you want? Listen, I know things are messed up right now, but you have to understand how hard this is for Kayla. She's been crying for days. She really thought you'd help us out. Did Kayla put you up to calling me? No, she's really upset and I'm worried about her. We were counting on you. You were counting on me funding your girlfriend's unemployment while she finds herself. Do you realize how insane that sounds? It's not like that. She just needs some time to figure out her next move. Why can't you support her? You're her boyfriend. There is silence. My design job is incredibly inconsistent right now, and my parents said they'd cut me off if Kayla moved back in with me at their apartment. So your strategy was to make me accountable for both of you. You don't have children, and you make a lot of money. It wouldn't have been too difficult for you. The entitlement was stunning. This conversation is over. Don't call me again. I hung up and blocked the number. The flight to Singapore took 18 hours, with a layover in Tokyo. I spent the majority of it sleeping in a deep, dreamless slumber I hadn't had in years. My body understood what my head was still digesting. I was finally free. Singapore felt overwhelming at first. The humidity, the people, and the tremendous diversity of languages and cultures. My corporate apartment was small but modern, with a view of Marina Bay. My new office looked sleek and professional, and my coworkers were welcoming. The first week was a whirlwind of orientation meetings, paperwork, and adjusting to the time difference. I'd wake up at 3:20 a.m., wide awake, with my body believing it was afternoon. I'd stumble to my apartment's little balcony and watch the city wake up with lights flickering on in buildings across the harbor. Everything was different here: food, weather, and pace of life. The MRT Singapore subway system was cleaner and more efficient than anything I'd encountered in California. People actually queued nicely rather than cramming into trains. The streets were pristine. There were rules for everything, and everybody obeyed them. I had expected to feel lonely. Instead, I felt lighter. My first project was a regional marketing analysis for teams in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Sydney. Lydia, my manager, was a bright woman in her 50s who had migrated to Singapore from Taiwan 16 years prior. During our first one-on-one, she gave me a careful look. "You seem relieved to be here," she'd observed. "Not excited, relieved. Are you running from something or towards something?" I hesitated before deciding to be honest. "Both, I believe." She nodded. "Good answer. Running away from something is fine as long as you're creating something better. Just make sure you don't spend so much time running that you forget to live." This was sound advice. For the first 2 weeks, I kept my phone in airplane mode, except for checking business emails. I knew I was delaying the inevitable, but I needed the time to acclimate and settle into this new life without the constant weight of home weighing me down. When I eventually turned on my messaging applications, I had received 139 texts from Mom and 96 from Kayla. I did not read most of them. The preview text was sufficient. However, there was also a message from my Aunt Valerie, Dad's sister. We had always gotten along, but she resided in Oregon, so I only saw her every few years. "Hey, Lauren, your mom called me upset about you moving to Singapore. I told her it sounded like an amazing opportunity, and she should be proud. She didn't like that. Anyway, I wanted to say I'm happy for you. Your dad would be too. You're doing the right thing. Love you, kiddo?" I wept when I read this message. These were the first actual tears I'd shed throughout this ordeal. Work was fantastic, challenging, stimulating, and precisely what I needed. My manager, Lydia, was amazing and supportive. My crew was talented and collaborative. I was learning new systems, contributing to large projects, and felt truly valued for the first time in my career. Around a month in, I stayed late to finish a presentation. Lydia approached my desk at 7:15 p.m. "You're still here. I'm just finishing up the Hong Kong analysis." She took up a chair. "Can I tell you something? When we hired you, I glanced at your resume and saw someone who was poorly underpaid and underpromoted for your skill level. You'd been with your previous business for 7 years with little advancement. That normally tells me one of two things. Either the employee is subpar or they're being taken advantage of. Your work informed me it wasn't the first option." I had no idea what to respond. "I'm telling you this because I see you doing it again. Staying up late every night, volunteering for extra tasks, working through lunch. You're great at your job. You don't have to prove anything. I just want to make sure I'm contributing. You're contributing a lot during business hours. Go home, Lauren. Actually, live in the place you relocated to. Otherwise, what was the point of coming here?" She was correct. I had been replacing one type of self-sacrifice with another. I made friends, real people who didn't know my history and viewed me as Lauren, not the responsible sister or the ATM daughter. I visited hawker centers and sampled every type of food I could find. I visited gardens by the bay and Sentosa Island. I went on a weekend excursion to Bali. My cubicle mate Evan, from Australia, invited me to a board game night organized by his wife every Friday. That's where I met Renee, who worked in finance and had a dry, biting sense of humor that made me laugh so hard my stomach hurt. We bonded over our common experience with domineering mothers and became close friends. Renee introduced me to additional people, her rock climbing group, her book club, and her husband's cricket team, which always needed people to come watch and drink beer. Suddenly, my calendar was filled with true social gatherings, with people who had invited me because they enjoyed my company, not because they required something from me. I was honestly and pleasantly thrilled. 7 weeks into my new existence, I had finally unblocked Mom and Kayla. The messages that poured in were a voyage. The first few weeks had been filled with wrath and guilt. Then came the negotiating phase, with promises that everything would be different if I simply returned home. Then there was uncertainty as to why I hadn't responded. Finally, there had been radio silence for the previous 3 weeks. I messaged the family group chat, which included Mom, Kayla, and a few aunts and uncles. "Hello, everyone. I wanted to let you know that I'm settled in Singapore and doing well. This has been an incredible opportunity, and I'm very happy with my decision. I need everyone to understand that I'm no longer available for financial support. I love you all, but I need to prioritize my own life now. I hope you can respect that. The responses were mixed. Aunt Valerie texted the heart emoji. Uncle Robert, Dad's brother, responded, "Good for you, kiddo." A couple of cousins texted, "Congratulations." Mom wrote, "I'm glad you're safe. I wish you'd answer when I call. We have a lot to talk about." Kayla did not comment at all. 4 months later, I received an email from Kayla. This was an actual email, not a text message. "Liv, I don't really know what to say. I've been really angry at you, but Molly told me some things that made me think. She said I've been taking advantage of you for years and didn't even realize it. I got defensive at first, but then I really thought about it, about all the times you helped me and how I never really appreciated it or even thanked you properly. I don't know if this matters now, but I got a job. Derek and I broke up because he wasn't willing to work harder, and I realized I was dating someone who wanted to coast on other people's money, just like I was doing. I'm not asking you to forgive me or come back. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to do better, and I apologize for how I treated you. You deserve better from me." I reread the email 5 times. It felt authentic in a way Kayla's communication rarely did. Raw and honest. I responded with the following. "Thanks for reaching out. I'm proud of you for taking those steps. I hope you keep it up. I'm not ready for regular communication yet, but I appreciate the apology. Take care of yourself." It was not reconciliation, but it was something. I slammed the door shut, leaving a little opening. Mom was harder. She called once a month, always around dinner time, which was early morning for her. The few times I responded, the talks were difficult. She struggled to ask about my life without delving into her own troubles or making me feel terrible for being away. After one especially painful call, in which she spent 45 minutes complaining about how difficult it was to do things alone, I stated something I had been keeping back. "Mom, I love you, but you need to hear this. You made me responsible for holding this family together when I was 18 years old. You put adult burdens on me while letting Kayla stay a child. You taught me that my value came from what I could provide, not from who I was. That's why I left. I didn't leave to punish you. I left to save myself." She remained quiet for a long time. "I did the best I could after your father died. I know you did, but your best wasn't good for me. And I need you to acknowledge that instead of making me feel guilty about protecting myself." Another prolonged delay. "I'll try. This is hard for me, Lauren." "It's been hard for me for 16 years, Mom." We hung up shortly thereafter. She did not call back for 7 weeks. Year 2 in Singapore. Offered promotions and new experiences. I started dating Logan, a software developer from Chicago. We became friends because we were both American expats and enjoyed watching bad action movies. It wasn't serious, but it was fun, healthful, and simple. I visited Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia. I tried rock climbing at an indoor gym and discovered I really enjoyed it. I became close friends with Renee, who worked in my building and shared my dark sense of humor. I didn't think about home much anymore, not because I'd forgotten, but because I'd established a life that didn't revolve around the needs of others. Kayla provided occasional email updates. She had been promoted to assistant manager of the salon. She was seeing a new instructor who appeared to be stable. She had started paying off her credit card debt. The emails were concise but consistent, and I valued them more than lengthy apologies would have. Mom and I spoke every other month. The interactions were still awkward, but less tense. She was learning to ask about my life without instantly turning to her own problems. It was progress, although sluggish. Then came the call that altered everything. It was 2 years and 6 months since I had left. Mom called on a Tuesday, which was unusual. Her voice was shaking. "Lauren, I need to tell you something. I went to the doctor last week. They found something during my mammogram. It's breast cancer, stage 3. My stomach sank. "What's the treatment plan?" "Lumpectomy followed by radiation. They're optimistic about the prognosis, but I'm scared, honey. I'm really scared." For the first time in years, she sounded as if she needed me. Not my money or my sacrifice, but me. "I'm here, Mom. I can't fly home right now because of work, but I'm here. We'll get through this." Over the next few months, we had weekly chats regarding her anxieties, therapy, and life. She told me stories about Dad that I had never heard. She inquired about my job, friends, and my connection with Logan. She sincerely apologized for the pressure she had put on me. "I was so overwhelmed after your dad died. Kayla was falling apart, and you seemed so strong. I leaned on you because you could handle it, but I never stopped to ask if you should have to. I took your strength for granted, and I turned you into a parent when you should have just been my daughter. I'm sorry. During that chat, I burst into tears, the type that let go of years of anguish. Thank you for saying that, Mom. Kayla stepped forward throughout Mom's therapy. She accompanied her to appointments, stayed with her after surgery, and managed her meds. She emailed me updates and photographs. In one photo, she and her mother were making comical faces in the hospital, with Mom wearing a gown and Kayla sporting a ludicrous wig from the gift shop. Trying to keep spirits up, Kayla wrote, "We miss you, though. You're doing great." I replied, and I meant it. Mother's treatment was successful. By month 7, her scans were clear. The relief was profound. I flew home for a week of her final radiation treatment. It felt strange to be back in California, in the house where I had grown up. Everything seemed smaller somehow. Kayla picked me up at the airport. She looked different, more mature and grounded. She gripped me tightly for longer than I expected. "I really missed you, Liv." "I missed you too." The week went unexpectedly well. We did not go back into old habits. Kayla did not ask for anything but my time. Mom did not guilt-trip me for being away. We cooked together, watched movies, and browsed through old photo albums. On my last night, we sat in the backyard with wine and a photo album laid out between us. "I almost destroyed this family," Mom said sadly. "When you left, I was so angry. I couldn't understand why you'd abandon us, but you didn't abandon us. You saved yourself." And watching Kayla step up these past few months, watching her become responsible and capable, I realized I'd been enabling her for years. Enabling both of us, really. We needed you to leave. "I didn't want to hurt you," I explained. "I know, but you had to hurt us to help us. That's a terrible position to put someone in." Kayla wiped her eyes. "I was so mad at you for leaving. I felt abandoned, but Molly was right. I was treating you like a bank account, not a sister. I didn't even see you as a real person with your own needs. You were just there to help me. I'm ashamed of that now." "You've grown up a lot." I told her I had to. You weren't there to catch me anymore. It was the most open discussion we'd ever had as a family. I traveled back to Singapore the following day. Logan picked me up at the airport. "How was it?" he inquired. "Healing," I said. "Actually healing." 4 years into my contract, my firm offered me a permanent position with a hefty pay increase. I signed without hesitation. Singapore was now home. Kayla returned 8 months later, paying her own way. She remained for a week, and we performed all of the tourist activities. She gazed at the gardens by the bay, ate her way through Chinatown, and shot approximately 1,000 photographs. "I get why you stayed," she said on her last night. "This place is amazing, and you're different here, lighter." "I'm the person I was supposed to be," I told myself. "I like this version of you. I'm sorry it took losing you to find her." "You didn't lose me. We just needed distance to find a better way to be sisters." We hugged at the airport, and this time saying goodbye did not feel like the end. It seemed like a new chapter. Mom never came to visit. International travel was difficult for her, and I understood. However, we video called once a month, and the chats were enjoyable and genuine. She informed me about her book group and garden. I informed her about work promotions and weekend getaways. We were creating something new from the ruins of what had broken. 5 years after my departure, I was appointed regional director. At 36, I was managing teams in 4 countries and earning more money than I had ever anticipated. I had friends who felt like family. I led a life wholly on my own terms. Sometimes I thought about Kayla's text, the one that altered everything. The entitled presumption that I would unquestionably give my life for hers. The expectation had been so embedded in our family dynamic that she had not considered the possibility of me saying no. I had no regrets about what I had done, not for 1 second. Setting that boundary, making that choice, and signing that contract had been the most difficult and rewarding decision of my life. My relatives had labeled me selfish. They accused me of abandoning them during their time of need. But I hadn't abandoned anybody. I had finally stopped abandoning myself. The truth was that you couldn't save people who wouldn't help themselves. You cannot give up your own growth for the sake of another's. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is to step back and let people deal with the repercussions of their decisions. Kayla needed to learn responsibility. Mom needed to understand that loving is not the same as enabling. And I needed to understand that I too mattered, that my aspirations and happiness were just as vital as anyone else's. The boundaries I established were not walls. They were bridges to healthy relationships, even if it meant letting everything fall apart first. Last month, Kayla sent me a picture. She stood in front of her own salon, keys in hand. She had saved for 4 years and purchased it outright. "Did it myself," she wrote. "No one's money but mine. Wish you were here to celebrate." I said, "I'm so proud of you," and I meant it wholeheartedly. That night, I stood on my balcony admiring the Singapore skyline. The city lights stretched out like stars. My phone was buzzing with messages from pals making plans for the weekend. Logan was scheduled to arrive later with Thai takeaway. Renee wanted to know whether I was available to go climbing on Saturday. My life was filled with excitement, choice, and the freedom that comes from finally putting yourself first. My family was learning to be self-sufficient elsewhere in the world. They were learning to be complete without me as a crutch. It took an ocean between us to make it happen. I didn't resent them anymore. I did not even feel angry. I just felt liberated. That independence I'd discovered was completely worth